Hello. I would like to talk about fees. Yes, unfortunately, the PCT procedure is not free of charge. So I would like to give you an overview of what fees are payable during the international phase of the PCT procedure and what procedures apply. So what type of fees exist? What are the relevant time limits within which these fees have to be paid? What happens if you miss one of those time limits? And I would like to also refer to cases where you might possibly get a refund of fees which you have already paid. So what are the main fees payable? Well, first of all, upfront when you file your international application, you need to pay the majority of the fees that are payable directly to the receiving office. And the fees payable are the transmittal fee, the international filing fee, and the search fee. These are really the main fees, the bulk of the fees in the PCT system. There are, of course, some other fees, but these fees are usually only payable in particular circumstances to other authorities like the International Searching Authority, the International Bureau, or the IPA, the International Preliminary Examining Authority. So for instance, if you have a case where there is lack of unity, the ISA will invite you to pay additional fees. If you choose to pay these additional fees, you need to pay them directly to the ISA. If you want to request from the International Bureau early publication at a point in time when the search report has not yet been established, there's a fee associated with that request, and that fee you need to pay directly to the International Bureau. And of course, if you start the Chapter 2 procedure, you file a demand for international preliminary examination, you need to pay the associated fees with that Chapter 2 procedure directly to the competent IPA, International Preliminary Examining Authority. How do you effect the payment? That really depends on the particular receiving office or other international authority concerned. And for that, you need to really inquire with each and every office, receiving office where you need to transmit those fees, how exactly you can make the fee payment. The good news is, now that I told you that you need to pay certain fees, there are actually also some areas where you don't need to pay a fee under the PCT. So for instance, if you ever request an extension of the time limit to correct a formal defect in a PCT application, which has been pointed out to you by the receiving office by way of form PCT RO 106, guess what? There's no extension fee that we would charge for this. There's also no claims fee. You can have 1,000 claims in your PCT application. Well, at least during the international phase, you don't need to pay a claims fee. However, we do charge a fee if you have more than 30 pages in your international application. So most likely, if you have 1,000 claims, at least you would end up having to pay a certain page fee. There's no fee associated with the request to request the rectification of an obvious mistake, that's also free of charge, and also to request the recording of certain bibliographical changes in your international application under Rule 92 bis is also free of charge. So what are the time limits that apply to the fee payment? So let's first take a look at the Chapter 1 fees. These are all the fees for applicants who do not file a demand for international preliminary examination. And remember, we're talking about the transmittal fee, the international filing fee, and the search fee here. So the time limit under the treaty and regulations is 1 month from the date of receipt of the international application. And as I said, you need to pay these fees to the receiving office. They will check if you have paid the fees, if you have paid sufficient fees. If they realize within that time limit you haven't paid, they will issue an invitation and they will give you an additional month from the date of mailing of this invitation to pay the missing fees. However, at that point, they can charge you a late payment fee. And this late payment fee is 50% of the unpaid amount. There's a minimum, which is the transmittal fee, and there's also a maximum, which is 50% of the international filing fee. But as you can see, 50% of the unpaid amount, that is a relatively high fee. So we would strongly recommend to you as applicant to not get into that situation, but to pay your fees upfront within that original 1 month from the date of receipt of your international application. Note also that if you haven't paid the search fee, the search copy will only be transmitted as soon as that fee has been paid to the receiving office. So this will essentially delay the start of the international search, and then of course also a delay in the establishment of the international search report. So in order to avoid that, make sure that you pay also the search fee as soon as possible. What happens if you end up not paying at all, even following this additional 1 month that you had following the invitation from the receiving office? Well, in this case, the receiving office will have to declare your international application to be considered withdrawn, and so to speak, that's the end of your international application. There's actually no procedure to revive an application if this happens to you, so you really need to be careful about these forms that you receive from us, PCT RO 133, which gives you the last chance, really, the last opportunity to still pay your fees. So let's also take a look at the fees payable under the Chapter 2 procedure. So this concerns applicants who file a demand for international preliminary examination. Here, very similar time limits apply. It's a 1-month time limit from the date of receipt of the demand, or possibly 22 months from the priority date, whichever time limit expires later. Again, if the fees are not paid, the IPA will issue an invitation, will give you an additional month, but again here they can charge a late payment fee. So really, in order to avoid that late payment fee, make sure that you pay the fees within the initial month which you have to pay the Chapter 2 related fees. Note also that preliminary examination will not start until you have paid the fees. So in order not to unnecessarily delay the start of the procedure and eventually the issuance of the final report, make sure that you pay your fees within the applicable time limit. And what happens in case where you don't pay the fees? In this case, the IPA will declare your demand as if it had not been submitted. And basically, that's the end of the Chapter 2 procedure. Now, what are the cases where you might possibly get a refund of fees which you have already paid? The easy case is those cases where you did not even get an international filing date, or where, because of national security provisions, your international application was not treated as an international application. In this case, you get at least the international filing fee and the search fee refunded to you. Transmittal fee is within the discretion of the receiving office. They're not obliged to refund the transmittal fee, and as a matter of fact, few offices would really refund the transmittal fee. But at least you would get in these cases the international filing fee and the search fee refunded to you. How about if you did get an international filing date? Well, there basically the rules say that if your international application is withdrawn by yourself as the applicant or considered withdrawn by the receiving office, you do get a refund, but only if the withdrawal or the declaration happens before the search copy has been sent to the searching authority and before the record copy has been sent to the International Bureau. Since these things can happen as quickly as within 2 or 4 weeks from the date of filing of your international application, you really would have to react relatively quickly if you want to actively withdraw your international application, if you are still hopeful to receive some of the fees which you already paid, to get those refunded back to you. Now, I really need to also warn you about something else, and that is fraudulent invoices which are currently sent to applicants and sometimes also agents from entities which are not, and I repeat, not the International Bureau, not from WIPO, and not any other PCT authority. In these invoices, these companies which exist out there offer you a service which is essentially to publish or make publicly available your international application in some sort of registry. This really does not serve any purpose and add any value to you as the applicant. Because when you file your international application and you have paid your fees, we will already publish your international application. That's part of the fee payment that you have already made. So getting it into this strange registry that these companies offer really does not any value at all. So really do not pay those fees. we made a list of samples of those invoices available on our website. If you ever receive such a form and you're uncertain what it is, do check on our website. We have many examples. And of course, we're also trying other means to stop these companies from sending these invoices, but it's not a simple and easy thing to do, but we're trying our utmost to keep these companies from sending these invoices to our PCT applicants. So I hope I was able to give you a short overview of the main fees payable under the PCT. I tried to explain what the applicable time limits are and what happens if you miss some of these time limits. I also talked about certain cases where you could get a refund of the fees that you already paid. And I did warn you, and I hope the message was heard, about certain fraudulent invoices which are being sent out, and we really wish you not to pay any of these invoices.